Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
We all know them. The friend or the colleague who is always running late. Heck, maybe we are that person. Whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes behind, what does punctuality say about you, both in a professional and social setting? And could your behavior be holding you back from building better relationships? I'm Melanie Ng, and in this episode of The Big Story, we look at the impact of tardiness from a generational and cultural perspective. Joining me now is peak performance mindset coach and best-selling author, Hina Khan. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm thrilled to be here.
And I should note, you were very early for this call. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I cannot be late for a topic on punctuality.
You were great. Okay, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it's something we all see in our daily lives. That, as I said, maybe it's the professional aspect, maybe it's the social. But what I want to start with is it a generational thing? There was a recent study done. This one was done out of the UK, small study group. It was 1,000 people. This one run out of a online meeting company called Meeting Canary. So they asked 1,000 British adults about their attitudes when it comes to punctuality. And almost half of those aged 16 to 26 said being between 5 and 10 minutes late is just as good as being punctual. The tolerance, though, as the age grew, went way lower. The other category said, no, that's a problem. So from your perspective, your professional perspective, your thoughts on punctuality in general?
I agree with that study. That makes a lot of sense, that it has to do with a generational outlook on the importance of punctuality, on what punctuality says about a person. So we of a certain vintage, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes we may have judgments. We have judgments around people that are not on time. And we will judge them. We will make assumptions about them. And so for us, of certain people, it's very important. And for us, it says a lot about the other person. And then there's another generation coming up where they don't look at it in the same way that we do. And they don't have the judgments that we have about somebody that is late. And what's a few minutes late? I know that some people, myself included at times, if I'm not early, I'm late. And we have this inner prompting within us around time. I've got to leave now to get there on time. I want to be there on time. And it's this inner prompting. And then you can see with others, there is no sense of urgency. There is no inner prompting. But I will say this. I will say that many of us judge, but we might not be right to judge so much either, because, Melanie, it can also be the other way around. Just like being late can be a pattern and it can kind of be something that is habitual, the person's always late. It could also be obsessive and habitual to always be on time. You can also be a victim of time the other way.
Oh, now okay, so let's
Yeah.
an interesting one. So would you say, those people who we call them keeners, okay? I believe I'm of the same vintage, but the keeners showed up 15 minutes early. They showed up 20 minutes early. In my mind, I think that just shows I'm prepared. I'm ready. I'm not going to be fussed with. I don't have to hurry and rush. If I put my hat on from someone else who sees it, would they see this as a negative? Could they perceive it as a negative then?
They could perceive it as a negative. They could think that you're very obsessive about it, or you've got some anxiety and you don't want to be late, or you think it says something about you. And so you're still a victim to time. Time is still controlling you in a way, but it's just the opposite. So there could be judgments on that.
Oh boy. Okay, so now I'm thinking, is there a sweet spot? Is there a
Yeah.
punctuality sweet spot?
I think there is a punctuality sweet spot, and it's when it doesn't control you. Like there's no anxiety, because sometimes we create anxiety even in being late. Do you know some people, and maybe you see this even with kids, sometimes you could get them up or you could get up an hour early. You're like, I'm giving myself extra time today. I'm going to make sure that I'm not caught up in traffic, and you still show up late. It's like the set point that you have that you might end up taking longer to do something because you think that you have time. So, and then the other aspect of it is that you're leaving so early because there's an anxious component to it. So the sweet spot is being relaxed and giving yourself obviously enough time to get where you need to go, but without anxiety.
I see. Okay, so I went the other way because I am pro punctuality. Here's the thing, I wasn't always this way. I think growing up, I was kind of the girl that walked in 5 minutes late. No big deal. I'm relaxed, all good. I'm the one that stayed up late and worked on my papers at the very last minute, handed it in because there was actually some excitement around that. Something happened, Hina. Something changed. I don't know if it was perhaps the industry that I work in where I'm like, I cannot be late because if I miss that deadline, my story doesn't go to air. If I miss this, we have repercussions. But I've had to sort of train my way through there. And with that, we've sort of ingrained in my son, who's 9 years old now, you better not be late for anything. And he's in all the sports, he's in all the extracurriculars, so much so. And you tell me if this is good or not. When it's ready for school, he gets up out of his bed, does his bed, puts on his uniform, and is ready before breakfast even begins because he has this anxiety around being late because we've told him this is a sign of disrespect. You can't show up. Teachers, coaches, they will not be happy with you. I'm wondering now if this is a healthy behavior or path to have paved for him because I was not him and I want him to be what I think will be perceived as respectful. What is your take on that, Hina? You're nodding, you're smiling at me. I don't know if you're judging.
I am not judging. I am not here to judge. And I get it. We want to set up our kids for success. And we understand that in the world, we value being on time. And that's also a cultural thing as well, too, right? There's many cultures where that is not the norm and that's not the expectation. But in the culture that we are in, yes, that is something that is definitely expected. What's interesting to me, Melanie, is that you did not grow up that way and you're okay,
Well, that's
right?
debatable, Hina. That's debatable.
And it's something that you switched to, that you created. So it wasn't part of your self-image. It wasn't your way of being and doing things. But then when external circumstances made it very clear that for you to be able to adapt and thrive and survive in the news environment, in the media environment, this is going to be something that is necessary. So when it was necessary, you were able to change your habit. And now it clearly is ingrained in you and it is a habit. So I just say this, if there are parents that are listening that feel like, oh my gosh, my kid just can't get it together and they're always late. Look at Melanie. You're going to be fine. There'll be, and I'll say this, I have two boys. One is 15, one is 17. The 15-year-old, his room is so organized. He has no sense of urgency to leave the house. He's on a whole different clock. He's on a different time. The oldest, his room is a disaster. And he is very punctual. And he gets himself ready. So sometimes we think that these habits that we have, we can think that it will impact us or it means something about us in all areas of our life. And I want you to know that it doesn't. And that it's also something that can change.
I like this. I also thought about it on the flip side because, you see the kids that are habitually late to class and it's the parents dropping them off. And sometimes they have no choice because that's their ride to school. And so Talk a little bit about perhaps the relationships where people have different styles or they're passing down their style to the other generation. And is that something that again can be broken? Or is it something that kind of sits with us and we go, this is okay behavior. This is normal. This is what I grew up with.
Well, it's so interesting, Melanie, because in the way that you're talking about your beautiful son, you're letting him know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what the expectations are, what are the standards in our family. And I think that that will go for everybody. That's all we can do when the kids are young and in our home is that we can set up the standards. And then they will go on and they may change it just like you changed it for yourself. So again, I think that what we can do is offer some, especially parents, some relief. If they're late now, it doesn't mean that they're always going to be late. The other thing is you can talk about it in terms of self-image. And I think what you're speaking to when you've talked about it with your son is the impact that it can have on other people. So it's not so much that, come on, we've got to get going. We're going to be late. We're going to be late. But I think if we can frame it in that it's beyond us, when you've got people that are waiting for you, that there can be a ripple effect to that. Because if you're late for that appointment, then the next person, then they're spending longer on you. And the person that came for their appointment, they've got to wait. So I think this is a way that we can speak about it to just speak to the larger impact it might have in the world, as opposed to, you're late, come on, you've got to get it together.
I like the reframing on that. It goes beyond us because no one likes being rushed and saying, yeah, we're going to be late. If anything, that is anxiety inducing to all involved. So I like this. I'm going to take this with me. Let me jump backwards to something that you noted, and it was the cultural tardiness. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to put my hand up. I'm half Filipino. And then we always joke, oh, relatives are running on Filipino time again, so we'll tell them show up half an hour earlier when we want them to actually show them up at that time. You know what I'm saying. Now, I don't want to call out any culture because, again, I'm part of it and I grew up with it like that. But again, I've had to sort of adjust. Are there scenarios where it's okay? Maybe in a familiar situation or a familial situation where, it's social get-togethers. It's a different rule versus the professional setting. Or do you think that it's still an optics thing?
I love that you're bringing up this distinction because I do think it's different rules and different expectations. I remember being invited, like my family is from Pakistan, and so very similar to India in South Asian cultures. I remember there was a wedding that we went to, and I made the error of going on time. And they were still setting up. People were like, I don't even know if the whole staff was there yet. I might as well have started moving tables and things around because nobody was coming until at least 2 hours after the start time on the invitation. Even if I tried to be late, Melanie, I couldn't, but I learned my lesson then for sure. So there's some things where it's actually an expectation to not come on time, on the time that is mentioned. And that it's actually, you kind of look foolish if you are there on time. They're like, what are you doing here? You're way too early, even though that's the time that's on it. So I think in different scenarios, you don't have to be on time because it's not the expectation. And nobody's going to feel disrespected.
I think what's key is having to learn that in advance, right? And maybe it comes with experience and certain ground rules that your family maybe set forward. Like I have learned now what to tell my family when, and certain brothers gets different times. That I have definitely learned. I want to flip side this one, Hina, because I went into a deep dive to see if there were some positive stats I could pull out about why it's a good thing to be late, perhaps. And I found this 2019 study, and this one came from Harvard researchers that actually showed people who are chronically late have lower blood pressure and a lower risk of developing heart disease. They also said in the same study that these same people generally have an optimistic outlook, which then improves overall health. I mean, I want to get your take on that because I know there's lots of little bits to that. So they're saying, hey, listen, we are chill. We are calm. We might be a little bit late, but guess what? We're going to live longer.
Yeah, they're not stressing to make it to a certain place at a designated time. And their outlook is more optimistic in the sense that they don't worry that things are going to fall apart if they're a little bit late. Whereas I suspect, Melanie, for you and I, at times being late creates a lot of stress, which is we combat that probably by being early for things. Like you said, you don't have to rush. You've got everything and you're in the classroom or wherever you are. But many people that run late, they don't carry that stress and they have a belief that everything is going to work out. It's actually going to be fine. So they're not holding in their mind thinking, I'm disappointing this person, or this person's going to be angry, or, oh my goodness, I'm so late. They're not holding that from the people that you're talking about in that study. They're holding, it's all fine. It's all good. I'm going to get there and it's going to be okay.
So that person sitting in the same room as perhaps the same personality as you and I, listen, we can get along no problem, but I think maybe we get off on the wrong foot. We can get over that. I'm trying to think if the pandemic played a role in this. We had so many meetings online. In fact, we're meeting online as we speak. And it feels like some of those rules get blurred on online meetings versus in-person meetings because I know what it's like, many of us do, when you are running late and you open that door to that meeting, that classroom, that gym where you're playing sports and everyone turns and looks at you, there's an embarrassment factor. And I think I've had nightmares about this, Hina, where everyone's looking at you. And again, it comes with that anxiety. But I'm wondering if the next generation, those who are professionals that have sort of grown up in the professional capacity in the pandemic world where it's been online stuff, the embarrassment isn't there as the in-person embarrassment. Does that make sense?
That's so interesting, Melanie, because I feel the same way about online. And because online, it feels like it's just opening up your computer. When somebody is a minute late, I'm like, we're on the meeting. So isn't that interesting for you? Do you feel it's a little bit different? For me, I feel like my punctuality got even, I don't know, stronger because there was no commute.
I think it got better for me as well. But to be fair, I still had to go in person to work. But for many people, I would get frustrated if I had an online meeting with someone and they weren't there even 3 minutes early because it was a login. It was a literal click button. And that frustrated me beyond belief. And now listen, and did I pass judgment? Yes, I did. Confession. Of course I did. But thanks to this conversation, I'm thinking maybe there's more to it. Maybe they have a lower blood pressure than me. And they're winning at life. Maybe I have it all wrong. But listen, Hina, I think that there are pros and cons, and you've really laid them out here. If you were to leave one lasting message when it comes to tardiness, punctuality, impression, what would you leave with our listeners?
What I would want people to know is that we can always change. So to not think that however you are right now defines you and that is simply the way it is. To ask yourself, is it working for me? Because being on time or even being early, you may realize that the way you've been operating is actually not working for you. That does not mean that you're going to be somebody that shows up late, but how you get ready, how you commute, how you show up somewhere, you can adjust that so that it is a way that feels positive and that you're not a victim to time. And the same goes by the other way as well, that you can, if you find that you're habitually late, you can change that as well so that you're not a victim to time.
And this is why you are a peak performance coach. Hina Khan, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great discussion.
Thank you, Melanie.
And that was The Big Story. As always, you can send us feedback on this episode or any other episode by emailing us hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. You can also find us on the Seeker app or on all of your favorite podcast players. Remember, you can rate, you can review, follow, and please do share. I'm Melanie Ng. Thank you so much for listening.